This week, I was on Piers Morgan again at the very last minute, and he had on Tomi Lahren, and I was like, "Oh, not this bitch. Not this bitch." Here's just a little bit of their back and forth, and then I'll, explain mine.
Tomi, you were very quick to challenge me on X a couple of days ago when you saw me embracing this deal as a good thing. And
this is so funny to me. So basically, you can get on Piers Morgan if you just tweeted him a lot. He's like, "Oh, Tomi, you were quick to reply to me on." I mean, she's been on before. I'm just joking. Piers, if you're watching, I didn't mean it.
You were chomping at the bit to explain to me why it's terrible. So off you go.
Well, first of all, Piers, when you said that the United States has unlimited money, that's not true. We have no money. We are in debt. So the fact that we just have this unlimited money to spread across the world, meanwhile, we've got American cities looking like the third world, and of course, our wide open southern border, that to me is a point of contention. But I'll also say this.
Wait, where is she coming to us from? Is this Williamsburg? What the fuck? Is this Chicago or Williamsburg, or where are we? It looks like, I don't know, which third world city is she streaming to us from that they've set her up in a van with a background in. But anyway, here's what I will say. 1 point for Tomi for actually being a right winger to say, when it comes to war, we don't have money. Now, of course, she only means the war on Ukraine, or the war against Russia, supporting Ukraine. That's the only war she means.
Now, I understand initially wanting to help Ukraine, and I understand in year 1, maybe year 1.5, maybe year 2, supplying Ukraine with what they needed. But now, as we're entering year 3 of this, at some point, there needs to be a reality check. Can Ukraine actually win this war without other countries stepping in and actually fighting it for them? And furthermore, you've got Ukraine being the second most corrupt country on the face of the earth behind Russia, and we're continuing to send millions and billions of dollars. A lot of Americans don't really know where that's going. And a lot of us also feel that when this eventually ends and there's some kind of a diplomatic resolution with Russia, then the United States is going to go in and give more money to Ukraine for so-called nation building. So when does the spigot get shut off? And also, why are Democrats so reluctant to say, we will loan you this money, we will loan you this equipment? Why is this a forgivable loan when the United States itself and so many Americans are currently suffering under inflation and Joe Biden's policies? That's something that a lot of conservatives want to know, and that's why we're furious over this.
Right, explain to me though.
And that's right. Well, the reality is most of the conservatives voted for this, and you're so breathy and performative, and everything is just, you've been practicing. I mean, have you seen young videos of Shakira? She was singing at age 12, and Tomi Lahren has been doing this since also age 12, probably in her public access channels, and she's been rehearsing her lines, and she's very performative. It's like how Ted Cruz just sounds like he's in a play for 12-year-olds, and I am incensed. Sorry, that's kind of a crusher of a fucking imitation right there. But this is, again, kudos to at least being like, she's like, when this is all resolved and there's diplomacy, I got news for you. We have no path to get that, but you'll see my response.
Difference ideologically between supporting Israel, which is under threat from a totalitarian regime in Iran and through proxies, and Ukraine, which is under threat from a totalitarian regime in Russia. What's the difference?
Okay, I love how Piers is like, well, what's the difference between supporting Israel? I'm like, yes. And which is under threat. I'm like, oh no, from a totalitarian. You're like, oh God, here we go again. This is somehow and look, I know President Zelensky of Ukraine is very supportive of Israel. Let's just put that cognitive dissonance on the side here. But it is wild to me the ways people bend over backwards to try and make Israel look like the victim in this. And just like Ukraine is the victim. It's like, oh God, you have to truly lie to yourself over and over again.
Well, for one, Israel has a chance of winning their war. They can decimate Hamas. They can put an end to this quickly and decisively if our own president would stop standing in their way. And of course,
that's great. So I love this. So this speaks to, again, the kind of isolationism. It's We only want a war where we can kill them all dead real quick. Also, it helps that they're Arab, and also somehow Biden is in the way. Ha, 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 ha. I wish. And what's interesting is like Piers is kind of talking about Iran, and Tommy's not talking about Iran. Tommy's talking about the so-called war, which is against, like, she's more accurately describing what's going on. I don't know what the fuck Piers is talking about.
course, we've got disgusting, nasty pro-Hamas protesters on our own college campuses, which is a discussion for another day. But Israel can win this. Israel can wipe out Hamas and Islamic terrorism. We haven't seen Ukraine be able to hold off Russia. So there's the first difference here. And also, as I mentioned previously, Israel has a track record of being able to audit itself, being able to be responsible with money that it's being given.
Really?
I don't know if we can say the same thing about Ukraine. I don't think anyone would believe that Ukraine, which has a long history of corruption, Piers, as you know.
Okay.
I love how the right is suddenly like,
I've been auditing Ukraine for years now, and it's very corrupt. You know, there's a senator in the Bucha province. Like, what?
Come on. You don't know shit about Ukraine. I'm sorry. And did you know that the Pentagon fails their audit every single fucking year? Maybe we cut off the spigot to the Pentagon.
I have one question for you. Which of these two leaders is currently involved directly in a corruption trial alleging fraud, bribery, and breach of trust? Is it President Zelensky or is it Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, the people of Israel will have to decide on the Netanyahu issue, and they will decide that. But Ukraine as a country goes far beyond just Zelensky. Ukraine itself has a long history of corruption. So it's
she's so versed in low-level regional fucking county commissioners of Ukraine who've been secretly embezzling during the war. Just like, come on. Please, please, please stop this. Like, anyway, so, but great question from Piers because it's true. Look at fucking Israel. And which is so funny because if you follow the logic that Piers is laying out here, then why is he so gung-ho to support Israel himself? Like, don't you get it? Like, maybe we should, let's not support people who have got, you know, dozens of charges hanging over them. Hey, what about the former president, Donald Trump? Maybe we don't support that guy either, who's got dozens of charges hanging over him.
It's not about just one guy and one election that can easily maybe solve some of those problems. This is about a nation that has a history of corruption. So a lot of Americans are unsettled about sending so much money. And also, I would also point this out. It's not just military aid. It's also economic aid. The fact that the American people are funding economic aid for government bureaucrats in Ukraine. I'm sorry, Piers, that's a bridge too far for me.
Okay. Francesca, your response.
Yeah, who's this lady? Yeah, I think both of your framing is bogus. I don't think that Israel is fighting against a totalitarian regime in Iran, and I don't think they're waging a war. They are waging a one-sided ethnic cleansing against the people of Gaza. 34,000 of whom have been killed already, and 25,000 of those people are women and children. There was just a mass grave discovered under a hospital in the city of Khan Yunis where surgeons in scrubs were found handcuffed before they were summarily killed. So I think both of your framing is off here. If anything, if you're going to talk about the ways that Ukraine actually mirrors Israel, it's that the people of Palestine are the Ukrainians and their own sovereignty has been taken from them by Israel. And in the case of Ukraine, by Russia. Look, broken clock situation here with Tomi Lahren, because honestly, we disagree about pretty much everything. But I think it is true that we need to see some sort of light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to funding endless war. You know, Tommy, you said diplomacy. Man, if only we had diplomacy in this situation in both Israel and in Russia. But no one's actually talking about true diplomatic solutions. So Representative Ilhan Omar has said that she would like checks on the amount of weapons that are sent over to Ukraine to see if there is, you know, what has been the result of that. Can we talk about diplomatic solutions? As a progressive, as someone who does not want to see more war and more death, I believe in that too. What's funny about Republicans in this case, though, is, okay, really briefly, Rep. Omar said this 2 years ago. So Representative Omar did vote for the Ukrainian funding bill. Remember, they were separate in the House, and Ro Khanna voted against and of course, she voted against the Israel funding bill. These were all separate in the House, and so that's how they got through. And Ro Khanna credited Mike Johnson, whatever. But I misspoke in a way because Representative Omar has not really, from what I'm remembering, I think this was a couple years ago where she was like, what's the aim of funding Ukraine? Like, are we gonna have like accountability and some accounting of where the money is ending up and what, like, basically, like, let's check in. Because, sometimes the United States, when we like to fund resistance movements in different countries, doesn't really have a good track record of where the weapons end up. Now, let's just put that over here because it seems like that's sort of a thread. She was lone on that. And there hasn't been sort of a left or a squad-led effort to try and find alternatives to or diplomatic solutions to what is going on in Ukraine and Russia. And again, maybe it is naive and foolhardy. I don't want to say that there are necessarily avenues for like, hey, let's just all talk. Let's sit down and break bread. No, I'm not naive like that. But I do think that there needs to be a progressive countervailing narrative and solution to instead of just, hey, let's just write more money, write more checks for more weapons and sell them, increasingly more dangerous weapons that will increasingly put, Russia on its back foot and potentially ready to lash out. Who knows? So I want to put that there, that I slightly misspoke, but also you don't do this show to be actually, like, Piers doesn't give a shit about facts. Like, he doesn't give a shit about, like, truly bringing in people who are knowledgeable about this issue. I'm not saying look at me. Like, I'm not a fucking expert on this. The guy in the middle is like a very much a neoconservative, like, rah, let's go to war. This is all good. Military guy. Like, that's like his influencer identity. I think it's like, what's his last name? And he was offering like a very, like, for lack of a better term, a very Nancy Pelosi-esque view. Yes, we should, there are threats in China, there are threats in Taiwan, that's the same as the threat of Putin, yada, yada, yada. So that he was middle of the road. He wasn't as like spicy. But this is kind of the point that I wanted to make. They never met a war they didn't like. They don't apply this to Israel. They don't apply this to anywhere else in the world. They love war. They got us into Iraq. They got us into Afghanistan. They got us into, some drone wars in Pakistan. And now they want to send troops down to the southern border so they can prevent a Salvadoran woman from coming into this country and setting up the best lunch spot in their town. Pupusas are delicious. And that's where they're like, oh, they love wars. So why is it that this is the one war the Republicans don't like? Huh. Does it have anything to do with the fact that in the year 2016, Donald Trump actually changed the RNC platform, the Republican platform then? And the one thing he changed was what? We will not defend Ukraine if Russia gets involved. Very curious. Yeah, see, somehow I'm also that leftist that's just like, the Russia story is not it's not a story. It's a reality. Like, you guys know how I feel about this. Fuck Robert Mueller. That dude's a Republican. He's been a Republican. Fuck his whole fucking findings that were like, oh, look at all the collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Oh, by the way, none of this is a crime and he's a sitting president, so nothing can happen to him. Like, who in their right mind put any vested faith in Robert Mueller to hold Donald Trump accountable in the first, what was that, year of his presidency? Look, again, I am not a Rachel Maddow, although honestly, some of those monologues are pretty tight, but I am not a Russiagate psycho. But I come at this from even a farther, like, why didn't we go harder? Like, this was so clear that the Republicans were taking money hand over fist vis-a-vis the NRA that was, thanks to dark money and the ability to hide all of its fucking funders, was funneling it right into the Trump coffers. And all we had was a Republican former FBI head. Please give me a fucking break. Democrats are so soft, man. They're so soft. It's just wild to me. And we just have to forget it. We just have to forget it. Yeah, Paul Manafort might be back in the Trump White House. He might be back on the Trump team. It's all good. All good. No, it's fine. It's fine. Meanwhile, we're being sold a pack of xenophobic lies that like we're the ones that want to let like undocumented immigrants in through the southern border. Y'all are representing foreign governments within your very party. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Do it.